let me pick this back up in the studio to get a little bit more in-depth as to why these three different lenses on the same camera adds a whole different look about this drone without even moving it. Okay, so about 3 months ago, I switched over from the original Mavic 3 to the Mavic 3 Pro. Now, I made a freewheel video about it with the ND filters. Still been using them, and I got to tell you, tremendous success with the freewheel ND filters. I don't feel I would have gotten the maximum capabilities I've gotten out of this drone if it was not for shooting through a freewheel ND filter. That being said, I want to focus on the three lenses when it comes to this drone. Now, a lot of things have stayed the same with the OxySync 3. Still doing a tremendous job with that transmission system. I never worry about it. I'm not a range hound flying off for miles, but when I'm in a high intensive area that could have plenty of interference, I'm never worried about it. It has a rock solid signal. It also went from 46-minute flight time to 43, less than about 3 minutes with a little bit of heavier weight with that bigger camera on there. Actual flight time's a little bit less than that, but you know, I've never had an issue also with worrying about how long it's been up in the air as well. So all of that stuff has stayed the same batteries, props, everything. It's the lenses. Going from the main Hasselblad 4/3 to the Explore one to also having that 70mm middle one. And it's made all the difference in the world. And the most recently, on September 5th, DJI has done the most recent firmware update. So this thing has changed physically upgrades as well as firmware upgrades. Since I've gotten the original Mavic 3 back 2 years ago, it was an incomplete drone. They announced it that way. They said it wasn't up to its full capabilities. Firmware was going to fix it and update it as time went on, and they did just that. As a matter of fact, the original Mavic 3, they upgraded the firmware so well that the Explorer mode camera was quite functional. At the 7 times, I was shooting some outdoor ceremonies, weddings, nuptials, getting a really good intimate setting with the vows being shared or the groom handing off the bride without the props interfering with the the noise overlapping the ceremony itself. Now with this, they upgraded the lens physically, so now there's a better Explore lens, and as well as the September 5th firmware update, all three lenses now can shoot in the D-Log-M. So mixing the colors and getting that video to where you want it to be, it's become that much more functional. Now, they also added in some other features that I didn't even know this can do. The 360-degree obstacle avoidance was always something I cherished in this drone. I want to focus on the subject matter when I'm flying. I don't want to worry about hitting something, and the obstacle avoidance has always put me in a very comfortable state. But also, now you could turn on those cameras. They had no idea you could do that. They're enough for recording, they're in black and white, and they do have a shake to them down on a gimbal, but that's not what you'd be using them for. You'd be using them for to see how close you are to whatever it is you might be panning away from, up towards, or whatever. So now you have that functionality of doing that as well. Now the other thing it has too is some AR modes. It gives you that home point takeoff, like with the Avata. I don't have any of the other Enterprise drones. I guess it's had it on those for quite a bit, but the Avata lets you know where it took off and then go back to it. I find that to be so helpful in certain scenarios, taking off in some of the coastland in Rhode Island where a lot of it also looks the same, going right towards myself so I can really get the most out of that battery without worrying about running it too short. It also upgraded the return to home, giving you the path that it's going to go so you can just make sure it's not going to interfere and hit anything. Okay, so another very cool update in this firmware is the landing shadow. Now me personally, I do a lot of hand launching and catching, but there have been some circumstances where I was going out some very small openings of trees and maybe some other obstacles, and it's really nice to see that shadow forecasting where I'm coming down, so this way I don't hit any of these obstacles. I could just really see this being a very cool safety feature that might not be needed all the time, but when it is, it's going to be very cool to have. So it came out with so much more upgrades, and I don't even feel like they're done yet. I think there's still going to be some more surprises down the road. But either way, those three lenses, which by the way, I have the freewheel filter on there right now, covering them. But there you are. You have the Hasselblad 4/3 with that 20 megapixel, 24mm. You get that full 10-bit. Well, you get full 10-bit out of all of them now, but it gives you that wide angled view. Now, from the same point, from the same exact, not even moving around the drone, switching from the Hasselblad to the 70mm, that middleweight, which is now an optical zoom and not just a digital, changes the entire complexity of the shot. It brings the background to the front. It helps change the color, the dynamic range. Now I go also to that 48 megapixels, so I get even more in-depth data on there. And it really gives you a different look or a whole different viewpoint from the same exact angle. Now, take it one step further, jumping into the other one, 66 millimeter, the telephoto one, which is a better upgraded one. And again, I've used it in commercial work. It works very well. It depends on the amount of light you're working with, to be honest, but it does work very well. Now, that being said, it gives you another viewpoint and a whole nother angle of view. So catching my sunrises, you know, just for an example, I went out to Newport the other day, and it starts off with the wide, and it gives you a certain look about it, which is intriguing. It might look good, but then you switch to 70 millimeter, it gives it so much more depth to it, and so much more of a visual eye candy, for lack of better terms. Then switch to 70 millimeter and you get that close-up with the sun coming up from the background. So again, it gives you a whole different perspective from the same point. I don't have to move around the drone. I have to keep going in and out. Save my battery and the whole 9 yards. Just sit at a hover for a little bit and just grab those views that I'm going to grab. And that's what the whole key to this is. I feel like this is the best drone on the market because you get all the varieties of that nice wide angle from the Hasselblad, the midway points that you would get from the Air 3 that has both of the mid one, the 1/1/3 that this particular drone has. And then you have also the option of the zoom. Now the zoom, you do get some good quality images at the 7x, but you can actually go in all the way as far as the 28. Now I'm not going to sit there and say it's high definition video quality. It's not, but it does give you a viewpoint if you're trying to figure out what something is at a distance, or if you're just trying to, you know, do a little discovery before you fly out to someplace just to see what something's going to look like. It gives you some options before you, instead of just having to fly out there and see anything in particular. And not to mention, it gives you a good idea on something that's at a good distance without having to fly beyond your visual line of sight and see exactly what that is. So I have found it to be very intriguing. Now, I've been using it for about 90 days, the entire summer. This last week I was on vacation and it was a very hot week for the month of September. It was the last remnants of summer. I think we have like 2 weeks left, if that. But this week was almost 100 degrees, quite a few days, high humidity. So it was wear and tear on you. And it was just so much fun getting out there with this. But again, been enjoying it for the last 90 days. All the firmware updates, all the upgrades they've done to this thing, it is such an incredible small handheld drone. And it still is that small handheld drone. Now I do have the Mini 3 Pro that I use in some commercial realty shoots where I'm not using the Mavic 3 Pro. But this thing, it is incredible for all of my work that I go to do, whether it's commercial, whether it's my enthusiast shots that I'm going for, like the sunrises, sunsets, that kind of shot. It also does very well. Now I don't do it its full justice like some others do with the hyperlapse features on there. I don't do a whole lot of the mass shots or the auto features. I fly a lot of my shots. I don't do a center point. I'm focused in on it, moving the sticks around to get that circle shot that I'm going for. I don't let the automated systems work on it, but it does have a fantastic functionality with that should you decide to go ahead and let the automated features take place. But I'm kind of like more of the in control. Now, the only thing that is a bit of a pain in the butt for me is this cover. I do love it because it holds the props in place and it holds the camera gimbal, and it's that big old camera on there. But it's a little bit of a pain in the butt when it comes to using it. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want to go into the Mavic 3 Pro, anything a little bit further than anything I covered or didn't cover, hit me up below. Let's have a great conversation. If you enjoyed the video, give me the old thumbs up. And if you want to see more, subscribe. I'll catch you next time. Later.